says it is not selling ECG and Netco, but only seeking private sector participation to improve efficiency and then reduce losses. But organized labor strongly disagrees, and they are warning that any form of privatization could threaten jobs, could raise tariffs, and then put a strategic national asset in private hands. So what exactly is government planning? Why now? And what does it mean for consumers? This morning we take a closer look at the proposed changes to the ownership, if you like, of ECG and Netco. The Energy Ministry and government officials, they have repeatedly clarified that ECG and Netco are not being sold. They say the idea is to bring in private sector support in specific areas like billing and collection, but not full privatization of the complete companies themselves, That's not what they say they're doing. The Ministry of Energy has rolled out a guiding framework for private sector participation in power distribution. It is aimed at improving efficiency, aimed at reducing losses, and then attract investment without transferring ownership. However, there have been diverse opinions and reactions. Labour and union opposition, it's been strong. The Trades Union Congress and the Public Utilities Workers Union, they are firmly against the privatization proposals, and they argue strong revenue performance by ECG. They say that strong revenue performance by ECG shows the company can be turned around without handing it over to private interests. They also warn of potential job losses, higher tariffs, and weakened public control. For the unions, they have staged protests and symbolic actions like hoisting red flags nationwide to signal resistance. This is the evidence that they are citing, that labor leaders, they are pointing to ECG's improved revenue, raising from 900 million cedis to over 1.7 billion cedis monthly. After internal reform efforts has proved that public management can work effectively. The government argument is that private sector involvement is aimed at fixing operational inefficiencies and is not selling the state assets, framing it as a partnership for performance and not privatization. So this debate casts to the heart of how Ghana chooses to reform critical services, whether to rely on state-led turnaround programs or to embrace market-led participation to fix chronic distribution problems, all while ensuring affordable and then reliable power for citizens and businesses. There are a few people who are in support of this call for privatization of ECG.
I'm no go lie, nothing she do me, she make her cry, I go die, it's a me tamoshito,
3 FM Sunrise.
But he has thrown his weight behind the call for the privatization. He says we should take emotions out and reform ECG, arguing that it is time Ghana embrace structural reforms to improve efficiency in the power sector. He cited examples from other African countries where privatization has led to greater results and better service delivery in the energy sector. He also referenced Morocco as another country that has seen progress after introducing privatization into its energy space. In other countries, they've liberalized the whole sector to engage other competitors, so that at the end of the day, the customer or the consumer benefits from this particular competition and efficiency from all sectors. Benjamin, however, acknowledged the resistance to privatization in Ghana, often driven by fears of job losses and wage cuts among ECG staff. He's joining us on the lines at the moment so that he helps us understand or share with us again his thoughts on why ECG or the support to why ECG should be privatized.
Nothing she dey do me.
Contrary to the claims or contrary to the demands of the TUC, Benjamin Insia, thank you so much for joining us. Good morning to you and a happy new year.
Good morning, and many happy returns.
Yesterday, the Trades Union Congress and the Public Utilities Workers Union, they were supported by some staff of the VRA and NETCO in solidarity, and they restated their demand that government holds all conversations that is aimed at privatizing ECG. They say that whether it is privatization or public sector participation, private sector participation, regardless whatever it is just English. Government wants to take ECG out from Ghanaian ownership or public ownership. You support the call for privatization. Why should we look at privatizing ECG and NETCO?
So I support the call for private sector participation to instill some financial discipline, managerial discipline, and then reduce the wastage in the system, so that as a country we could mobilize enough to defray our power sector liabilities. And I think that I do understand the perspectives of welfare unions or labor unions, because their interest is about the welfare of their membership and ensuring that the interest of their membership is always promoted. However, such selfish interest should not override the general interest of Ghana, and also should not override the general interest of seeing that the energy sector or the energy landscape in Ghana is very sustainable and debt-free.
Sorry to catch you there, but you think that the demand of the TUC and PU and other workers to stop the calls for the privatization is selfish?
Oh yes, I think that they are being selfish, promoting their selfish interest and not the well-being of all Ghanaians in terms of ensuring a reliable and sustainable power sector. I say so because we all know the challenges of the sector. Most of these gentlemen have worked at these organizations for the past 20 years, yet these organizations continue to experience huge liabilities, continue to experience frivolous procurements, continue to experience higher system losses, mismanagement, and normally the argument is that it is not their fault, but rather the fault of politicians appointed by government. But I always say that when an organizational framework or an organization has a good corporate governance culture or an organizational culture, sometimes if you even bring the worst leader through the discipline of that particular organization, there will be a bottom-up approach that changes the mindset of the leader or the leadership into making sure that they also become disciplined. Because when you come to an organization and everyone in that organization has a value or has a certain discipline in terms of operations, in terms of management, whoever comes there as a leader will now emulate from them, because there will be some form of a bottom-up socialization. So we are in this challenge because of the kind of middle-level employees we do have at these state-owned entities. We are in this level because the kind of operational level employees we do have at these utility companies. And if government decides that for over the years you've not been able to give us the needed turnover, over the years you've not been able to solve the major challenges, and for that matter, our development partners have recommended that engaging private sector participation will resolve these challenges, teeming challenges at these utility companies for once. I think that we need to try that model. Trying that.
But please conclude. Sorry.
I think that we need to try that model, and then in future the model doesn't benefit us, we may go back to earlier models. But for now, this model we are embarking on, or this model we are practicing, has not been the best for us in terms of solving the energy sector challenges.
The argument they are making also is that a tripartite committee was set up, and following engagement involving the Public Utility Workers Union, representing staff of ECG, ECG management themselves, and the Minister of Energy and Green Transition, a 6-month turnaround program was agreed upon and implemented from July to December last year. Now, the result of the turnaround program, they say that has been phenomenal, with verified performance data from this turnaround indicating that the average monthly revenue collection increased from approximately 900 million cedis to a record 1.75 billion cedis, and that represents more than 90% increase in revenue collection. And they say that it has ensured, power generators, they are now being paid regularly, amongst others. So these gains have been recorded. Why then should we still look at private sector participation when it is possible to do this themselves with the needed motivation?
I think that the TUC and the POO should stop misleading Ghanaians. And I think they took this inspiration from some political comments made by the current appointees of this government. I say so because there has not been any revenue improvement in revenue mobilization. As far as those of us in the space have been monitoring, no improvement. What happened is that the previous government was underreporting to the cash waterfall mechanism. Aside underreporting, the previous government was underpaying to the cash waterfall mechanism. And those are two things. So the previous government was realizing 1.4, almost 1.5 billion on monthly basis. But because of underreporting, they were reporting about 1.2 to the cash waterfall mechanism. After underreporting to the cash waterfall mechanism, they underpay the cash waterfall mechanism by about 300 million. So they normally get 1.5, yet pay about 900 to 1 billion to the cash waterfall mechanism. That doesn't mean that revenue was not being mobilized. It was mobilized, but most of the revenue was used for internal mismanagement and frivolous procurement. Now, what happened in 2025 is purely because of increment in tariffs. It's not because ECG is doing wonders. It's not because NETCO is doing wonders. It's just purely increment of tariffs. So if in 2024, these companies were mobilizing 1.5 billion, and cumulatively in 2025, you've increased end user tariff by about 18%. Now, this 18% will surge the revenue you are mobilizing. The expected revenue to be collected from the sector is 3.5 billion Ghana cedis, at least 3.5 billion Ghana cedis.
So the 1.75 billion is still inadequate even after the tariff increment and the resolving of the underreporting situation.
It is only about half of the expected revenue that must be mobilized or mopped up out from the end user. So we are expecting the Ghanaians to mobilize about 3.5 billion. You are doing 1.7 billion, doing so because of increment in tariff. And you come to tell us that there's turnover. There is no turnover anywhere. And I think that it is because they've been misled by politicians. ECG uncollected revenue is still about 50% of expected revenue. These are the facts. The system losses are still higher. These are the facts. They are doing 27%. PURC has given them a benchmark of 21%. Aside that, I think that the reason why private sector participation is justified is because ECG is in liabilities of about 60 billion Ghana cedis. If a company is in these huge liabilities, right, without adequate buffers from central government to offset or defray these liabilities, you only need a private sector to be able to inject some liquidity as well as modernize the system for you to reduce your system losses. Where is ECG going to get the money from? So I think they've done well, but in seeking their interest, they must look at the well-being and the general interest of Ghanaians. And the general interest is that the ECG or other utilities have been under their care for some time now, yet we've not realized the needed profit or dividend we want to realize as a country. And for that matter, getting the private sector participation will be the surest bet. It is a new model. Let's also try it and see. Now, and there's another argument they make that today we are overpaying or we are almost clearing every cash waterfall mechanism. The reason we are able to clear cash waterfall mechanism is not because of revenue performance. the Category A and Category B in cash water fall mechanism are paid in dollars. The appreciation of the cedi makes it far cheaper to pay these or clear these arrears in cedis. And I don't think it is ECG nor NETCO nor any of the utility companies that ensured that the cedi appreciated by 40%. No. It is not by their doing. So we are paying. The reason why previous years we couldn't pay was because of the depreciation of the currency. Now the currency has appreciated by 40%. It means that it is cheaper to pay in cedis to a dollar-rated debt than paying in dollars to a cedi-rated debt. So that is what is happening. So today, if you mobilize 1.7 billion and the dollar was around 15 Ghana cedis, it means that you could not settle all your beneficiaries of the Category A or nor the Category B. But today, the cedi is around 10 Ghana cedis, 60 pesos. So if you mobilize 1.7 billion, you'll be able to settle them about $500 and something million and also settle Category B.
From the PSP Technical Committee's own detailed analysis of the trade-offs and the key success factors for private sector participating, changing ownership according to the TUC and pool or restructuring operational control by contract does not inherently lead to efficiency gains. So the analysis highlights that for private sector participation to succeed, the government must provide certain conditions or make some guarantees and structural adjustments or structural support so that it will be able to be successful. Because even if you privatize it or you introduce private sector participation without some basic changes, it will still not work. They are raising the central question that if government is willing to make these interventions available for the private firm, why not do it now?
Okay, so I don't want to preempt government policy framework. We are yet to see the policy framework from government with respect to this whole private sector participation. The transaction advisor has not even been selected. And if he even selected, the transaction advisor has not brought out any guidelines or procedures as to how this whole sector participation will go. So I will not be ready to comment and preempt on that decision. But to respond to them, I think that government of Ghana over the years has been supporting ECG. If you take most of the Auditor General report, there are certain times government of Ghana supports ECG by about 6 billion, 7 billion Ghana cedis, right? Yet these supports have not resolved our challenges, right? So if government of Ghana decides that doing the cost-benefit analysis, a private sector is supported with only about 200 million Ghana cedis, yet this private sector will be able to turn around these debt-driven companies into profitable companies within the medium term. I think that it is a commendable decision that government will take. But as I indicated earlier, PUU, TUC, and those calling for suspension of this particular arrangement must wait and also contribute to certain documents or policy guidelines that will come out of this whole private sector participation. And until we get the guidelines, knowing the economic cost that will come to us and as to whether that economic cost will override the benefit in future, we all will now have a new way of thinking about this whole process. So they should just keep their cool and then expect that contribute or expect that the document comes out. I understand them. I think that normally in terms of some of these engagements, they are likely going to be retrenchment. They are likely going to be sacking because I have maintained that if you look at most of the discos in the world and even in Africa, in terms of employee per customer, Ghana has one of the highest. As at 2022, when the PRC themselves conducted a study and published it under Dr. Ishmelaka, Ghana was having almost about 500 to an employee, maybe 500 customers to an employee. However, which means that labor productivity is very low in Ghana. In other jurisdictions, even in Africa, they had one employee of a distribution company to 1,000 customers. In Latin America, Chile, and other areas that the PRC use their data. In Turkey, for example, they had one employee serving 3,000 customers. In Ghana, NETCO and ECG had one employee serving between 500 to 600 customers. Yet the inefficiencies are unabated. Yes, they are not even effective. So I think that we need to have some redundancy strategies to even cut down the employment in this sector. We are paying people for no job done or no work done.
I see. We'll come back to this point you've raised, but will privatizing ECG or introducing private sector participation, something they say means the same thing though, will it automatically solve the problems resulting in the need for the privatization?
It depends on the policy framework, and also depends on the implementation of this whole private sector participation in the sector. It is not a model in terms of policy, and also in terms of theory. Involving private sector will inure to the benefits that the country will expect to get, mobilizing the needed revenue to offset most of these debts and also pay current obligations. But it depends on how we implement some of these policies. And as I have indicated earlier, we're waiting for the policy document and the guidelines into how we'll be able to get these participants. But in theory, it is clear that because the private sector is profit-driven, because the private sector is dividend-driven, the private sector always ensures that they put the innovations, they adapt to the new technologies to be able to mobilize the needed revenue from the sector. As I indicated earlier, that Ghana is doing only 50% of expected revenue from the sector. It means that we have the potential to do 3.5 billion. So private sector coming in and knowing well that their revenue will be benchmarked towards the ability to mobilize, because it's going to be a commission revenue or a service-based revenue. And if it's a service-based revenue, it depends on how much you are able to mobilize, and that mobilization gives you your yearly revenue. So the private sector will inject the needed technology. The private sector will inject the needed tracking system. The private sector will be very creative and innovative to ensuring that any Ghanaian, any firm that uses electricity in Ghana pays for it.
What will happen to the political influence? Is it going to stop?
Yes, that's even the good point, because the private sector, even though we all know the political economy run in this country, where politicians do have their hands in most institutions, including the private sector, but that interference will be far lesser compared to the current interference of a politician appointing almost everybody at ECG, or a politician appointing almost everybody at NETCO. Because the private sector, because of the contract you signed, breaching the contract causes a problem. So at least that interference will be less, maybe 10% interference somewhat because of back-end conversations or communications, but mostly on the job, because the private sector is profit-driven, dividend-driven, will tell the government that this is the contract you signed with me and I must achieve, so that you can also achieve, right? In that case, this is what I'm bringing in to modernize the system. We have numerous allegations, and sometimes true though, that ECG staff connive with some end users to evade the payment of bills. They report them to you, you hear them, right? But I don't think that the private sector will agree for its workers to connive with end users to evade bills. No, it will not happen. There are areas in Accra. Someone called me last 2 days and told me that there are areas in Accra around Amasamine where a whole community doesn't pay electricity. Are they telling us that ECG is not aware of that? They are aware. But why are they not doing that? Because someone within the operational level benefits from this inability of end users paying electricity.
Benjamin, please hold on for me. Indulge me and stay on the lines. Timothy Nyame is the General Secretary of the Public Utilities Workers Union. He's also joining us to let us understand the differences in the thinking. Timothy, thank you so much for joining us and good morning to you. Now, we're speaking with Benjamin Ntia. He's an energy analyst, and the argument is making, like a few other people who are in support of the cause for the privatization, is that there hasn't been any real improvement in revenue mobilization. The situation was that years ago, or in the previous government, what was happening was underreporting to the cash waterfall mechanism. And the increment from the 900 million to the 1.75 billion is purely increment in tariffs. And in fact, if we're dealing with these two problems, I'm talking about with the tariffs increment and solving the underreporting problem, we should be looking at some 3.5 billion cedis. That should be the expectation. But we're only getting 1.75. So the reasons or the thinking to go against the privatization is fundamentally flawed. What's your response to that?
Thank you very much, and good morning to your listeners, and good morning to Benjamin. Yes, I heard him briefly when he was speaking, and I just want to say that the reason that he was enumerating of which the provision should come is unfortunate. I don't want to debate him on it, but knowing an organization that has a staff of about 8,000 and looking at the issues, all that we need to do is that issues that are brought to the attention of management are actually attended to. And for him to say that the revenue that has moved from 900 to 1.75 is as a result of tariff, it is also not wholly true. If you can just recall, Honorable Minister of Finance, when he was granting interview to the press, he said that it is not as a result of the tariff adjustment. He's made it categorically clear. So I rather expected
not
my brother who is
about the tariff adjustment, but there's also the bit about the resolving the problem of underreporting to the cash waterfall mechanism. That also contributed.
So I'll come to that.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's one. So when Engineer Kufena came to office, those issues that he's talking about, it cannot be attributed to the accounting the cash waterfall mechanism. If you can remember, all the accounts that are purported to have been closed were closed. And then he started in February. And this massive turnaround strategy started in June. All the mechanism for the payment of money to the district were streamlined in March, and everything was on board. The total actual collection to the cash waterfall mechanism was all streamlined. So it was not as a result of the non-payment of money to the cash waterfall. And it can also refer to the the auditors. The auditors' reports can also attest to this. So I'm still pleading with my brother. If you are calling out an expert, as an expert, I'm appealing to him to let us be candid enough to analyze the situation without any passion or any sensitivity. Let us bring the forth, because we also have these records before we come on air to talk to you, the press, because you are the people who send this information to our listeners. So we have to put everything in his right. If he's pushing for the privatization, shouldn't nullify the gains that have been made as a result of the appointment of the managing director, and then the turnaround that has come. It is a collective effort, and I'm sure the minister himself can attest to it, the performance that has come. And it's not as a result of the cash waterfall payment that has no, it is not.
Yes,
it's a result of people who hitherto were not paying their bills, and then customers who hitherto were not mapped for payment, which the collective effort of the management and the workers of ECG, and then collaboration with the Honorable Minister of the sector. So it is a collective effort.
Great.
And as I speak, we continue to give him progressive report. But for my brother to just come and then nullify and say, all that he's saying are not something that we are unaware of. But we are actually quick to actually attend to the sport. As I speak now, I have about 4 letters of interdiction of staff. And of course, if something as a public institution like that, you expect this. The order we know is that sanctions are apply to those who falter, and commendation are given to those who are actually performing.
So what he's saying essentially, and what has been agreed across board, is that there've been lots of improvement. Congratulations to you. You've done well. But the truth is still remaining. The fact remains that 50% of the revenues your ECG is supposed to get is still unable to get. So there's still a lot more to do.
Quickly, so it is not to that level. You know, there are capacity charges. Look, there's a condition in the IPP sales, take or pay. When they give you 10,000 kilowatts, and whether you use a 10,000 kilowatts, you are supposed to pay. We are not getting there, and I'm a little careful in speaking because we are scheduled to hold a meeting with Honorable Minister. I don't want to go into details of it, but I just want to say that all that my brother is elaborating, enumerating, I don't know where each angle is coming from. Let us put it in a very nice way. I wish we can be together and then we iron out these things because they are not the true fact. The target I know is a little above 2 billion. But you can see progressively the performance of ECG. We are moving. And that's why we are trying to meet management to see how best we can infringe the gains we are making and see how best we can cross the teeth and dot the I's. So we are not saying that by this achievement ECG is out of the pool. No. But what she's saying, what we are saying that given the right direction that it is now, when we put it in their own perspective,
you can do it.
Quickly attend to those issues that he's talking about. We can be able to read it. So that's all I'm just appealing to my brother to let us look at it.
I want to
ask you,
Timothy,
to be in the hand of the private sector that before we can do this.
I want to ask you, Timothy, that is it really the thinking of or the belief of TUC and PU that the privatization will not inure to the benefit of the entire state, or it is because of the number of people who may be let go, that is why the unions are against the issue of privatization?
My brother, aside retrenchment and dismissal, aside this, we have seen instances, we have seen history where privatization has not benefited the intended purpose. It has not yielded the intended purpose across Ghana and over. So what we are speaking about is not something that we're just speaking out of passion. For now, I even know government, if you want to do in private sector. So, look, they can just hold the staff constant, that nobody will lose his job. We are not looking at that alone. We are looking at the total benefit. And we are saying that, look, energy company like ECG should be a challenging national asset. That should not be handed over to a private sector. We know what cartels can do. We know how major people of companies can influence, how they can influence state direction. We have seen it. That's why we are just trying to caution government, that the government can direct the affairs of the state entities. That is the business given to the private sector, who can hold it to ransom. As we speak, 70% of IPP are 70% of power producers are private. We are going ahead to want to say that, look, we are bringing the private sector also in the distribution network. Only God knows what will happen. So we are not speaking only for the workers.
Okay.
For we have seen the problem this abroad. We have other African countries where these organizations have not helped the nation. It has also impoverished them. So we are saying that if these clients have anything to go by, why can't we move with them and put in proper controls and move the company ahead? That's what we are just trying to look at.
Timothy, hold on for me. Let me bring in Benjamin Insia. Mr. Insia, you've listened to the responses from Mr. Nyame, the General Secretary of the Public Utilities Workers Union. Essentially, they're saying that they are doing well. They have done well. So allow them. In fact, in their demands, they are asking that the 6-month management union turnaround program must be extended and reviewed to determine additional measures needed to scale and sustain the success so far. And then while the turnaround program is underway, they are urging government to halt all actions towards the privatization of ECG and NETCO. Should we not, based on the improvements they have made in the past 6 months, should we not say, okay, they can do it, so let's see. Isn't it a benefit of doubt we can give to them?
Also, to Timothy, good morning. I think he agrees with me that they are under collecting revenue. but he wanted to justify that with some capacity charges or something. I think that when we talk of under collections, they are just revenues expected from them, because the reason why government of Ghana pays shortfall is because of some of these legacy challenges or policy challenges that we are in, and that is why every year we allocate almost 15 to 30 billion Ghana cedis in the budget, depending on the period, to offset some of these challenges. Now, two, it is not Benjamin Insia who is saying that they didn't perform or they didn't do any wonder in 2025. There were two reports either commissioned by the state or maybe state institutions picking up to do some audit. So the Auditor General did an audit of the sector, including ECG as a company. And I think the last time I checked, if my figures serve me right, the Auditor General indicated that ECG was underreporting by about 5 billion, and then 5 billion Ghana cedis. So a year. So what it means is that if you divide 5 billion by 12 months,
so it was 2025. No audit report has come out from 2025.
I'm building my point. So 2024. So 2024, that's about 5 billion. And in December 2024, my brother Timothy agrees with me that the cash waterfall mechanism, or the payment made by ECG to the cash waterfall mechanism, was around 1 billion Ghana cedi. So assuming the 5 billion of 2024, which were underreported, are divided by 12 months, and each of these months is put on the cash waterfall mechanism, it means that the cash waterfall mechanism was doing in excess of 1.3 billion, because 5 billion divided by 12 will give you about some huge figures, almost about 400 million or so. So 400 million plus 900 million or 1 billion in December 2024 means that they were doing around 1 billion. Now, the other report that came from the whole sector also, which is the PricewaterhouseCoopers he mentioned, also stated similar, almost about 2 billion. But they went further to say that aside under reporting or under declaring to the cash waterfall mechanism, there was also underpayment. So they had those two scenarios. And if you put their figures together, it's also around 3 billion or so. So what it means is that if you divide by the 12 months and add it on, it means that the cash waterfall, the actual amount that was expected in the cash waterfall mechanism in December 2024 was around 1.4 billion. So today, if you are doing additional 300 million, that is why I said it is purely because of the increment. And I think here my brother Timothy agrees with me. As I indicated earlier,
why do I agree with you? Why?
Yes.
Why do you think I should agree with you? A CEO who has performed, he has converted, he has become the best CEO of the country in 2024, 2025. It doesn't mean that he didn't perform, he only plugged the loop.
Timo,
the money was following.
So we have been
insult to the workers of this.
Gentlemen, one at a time.
Okay.
Benjamin, make your point.
We have been in this sector. We know how CEOs are awarded.
Mr. Yami, give Benjamin time. Let him finish.
Okay.
We are in this sector. We know how CEOs are awarded. We know. So collecting an award doesn't mean that you've changed something, because as we speak, we don't even know the strategic decision or the strategic thinking of your CEO. He's not published any strategic memo in the next 1 to 4 years, what he's expected to do, what changes he's bringing there. He's not even published that. We are not aware of that.
Benjamin, let's stay on track. Let's stay on track. Mr. Yami, please let us slide. Let us slide. Let's the conversation about the CEO slide.
All right.
Thank you.
So we know. So back to the conversation. I think there has not been any improvement. Then the issue about uncollected revenue, where he wants to assess capacity charge or whatever he's talking about, it's also true that their system losses are high. It is true that their system losses are high. So what is the figure in 2025, my senior? Because we are using the figure published by Energy Commission in 2024, and it's still around 27%.
No, it's not.
Or anyway, but you see, another challenge is that normally they come out to tell us that let's increase tariffs for them. When you increase tariffs, system losses will reduce. But go and check reports by PRS and Energy Commission. In 2018, for example, when we had the multi-year tariff review, which increased in the first month of 2019, In that year, when they had the multi-year review and increased tariff by about 23%, that year, 2019, their system losses jumped to 30%. I'm not the one saying it. These are reported by Energy Commission, right? So it means that we are not turning anything over.
So the
and I do sympathize. I do sympathize. No, I do sympathize because the 8,000 employees, I think that government will find a way to save those jobs. I know, because as a labor union, as a welfare union, the interest is that let's protect our workers. Let them still be in work. Let them continue to get their compensations. I do agree with you. But government will find a way to save these jobs. And that is why government is saying that already ECG is in some level of private sector participation. And my brother Timothy, you know, you sign a contract with a vendor which takes commission. There's this company, Haftel, right? It's also about revenue mobilization. So government is now saying that let's streamline it in a way that these companies don't only collect commission by introducing only some form of technology to mobilize revenue, but also injecting some liquidity in modernizing the system so that every Ghanaian that uses energy in Ghana pays for it.
Right. Benjamin, let's get a response from Timothy. Timothy, you've heard the thinking of Mr. Insia and people who are in support of the, of the privatization.
Yes, thank you very much. For Insia, he has been an advocate of private sector participation or privatization of state entities. These have been there. You see, all that I'm trying to enumerate. For you to just say that nothing has changed, and I can even hear some people around what nothing has changed. Look, you cannot imagine how things power system losses have been reduced from 27 to 24, and you say nothing has changed. You know that 1 percentage point reduction, how much it is, and you are saying that revenue that has moved as a result of streamlining of revenue into the catch water for mechanism. That one is an insult to the workers of ECG who are working around the clock to make sure that, look, if we're not working, we would have made this money that we are making we're talking about. And I also always want to put on record that any staff that you find culpable, please highlight the person for the attention of management, because it's the union leaders, the workers, they are supposed to be law abiding. So I want to say that 8,000 staff, I cannot hold brief for all of them. I want to say that anybody who crosses the line, because the CEO that was appointed by the president was giving he came and gave clear deliverable to the workers of ECG, which they were doing. So period by period they were benchmarked. So for you to just say that, because of this you are going to, in spite of all this, that does not make the private sector the best manager of ECG. The best managers of ECG are the engineers that they are trained. And all that government needs to do is to put in adequate controls to make sure and monitor their operations. So, for the mere fact that somebody has stolen a meter and is not billing a customer, does not give the license to the private sector to come and say that he's investing, he's coming to privatize the ECG because there's some 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 people are stealing power somewhere. Identification of the problem is the 50% solution of it. And we here have also been advocates of discipline staff, dedicated staff. So, but I take very strong exception that, look, there's this 6-month turnaround program that has come. They bring you record and you sit down and analyze. You don't even get down to the field to see what happens. But I thank God that the honorable minister of the sector, if you have to come to the situation room and see how the people are working, and you see how the performance is going day by day. Now, the analysts sit down in the office with a group of people and put the data and then use it because they have appetite for privatization. It is not the way to go. It is not the way to go. And we are taking safety, job security of development, but it's not the only thing we are looking at. We are looking at the imminent capture of private sector of the state asset and holding them to ransom in future. Today, the people can be your friend. You don't know tomorrow. For me, we are saying it, and we also want to say that we also have research department, we have people who have what it takes to give us research numbers. So we are not speaking out of this thing. We are not speaking what we do not know. What we know, and let us look at full privatization of this energy sector. Look at where they have invested. Private sector across Africa. just look at their performance. You look at what is happening there. So we have gone around, see how this private sector participation in other countries have brought woes to the nation. So we have to be very careful. So let us put our heads together. That nobody should continue to stand on the line and say that because some people are stealing power, the people are not willing. Let us bring them to book. Let's bring them to order, and let us find adequate controls that can be able to deter them from doing whatever they are doing.
Timothy, thank you so much. I appreciate your time with us on the program. Timothy Nyam is the General Secretary of the Public Utilities Workers Union speaking with us. Benjamin Ntia is still with me. Benjamin, if you can hear me, let me take your final word on this. And then I would ask you whether we have learnt lessons from failed privatization attempt. Case in point is Ghana Telecom to Vodafone Ghana.
So, to your last question, I think that countries are unique. Countries operate within legal frameworks, and countries operate within their own political economy. I think I was expecting him to mention some of those institutions across Africa, because I know of ESCOM in South Africa, I know of Umeme in Uganda, and even Ivory Coast has some level of private sector participation, and some of these countries are doing well in terms of revenue retention. So I was expecting him to mention the countries in Africa who are not quite doing well. Even the general literature says about 30% are not doing well, but sometimes they are not specific on these countries, and sometimes they even rely on data with respect to Ghana's inability to secure this participation in 2018 or so, when we wanted to do the PDS. They also use examples like cases in Nigeria. But as I indicated, that these are different jurisdictions, different political economy, different legal frameworks, and different understanding of some of these issues. So Ghana will be a different case because a transaction advisor will be selected. I think that it's likely going to be very participatory, and that in participation in various arguments or positions will be brought bare to enhance the policy document or framework or guidelines in terms of engaging these participants. Now, my final comment is that I'll try and see my brother, Senior Timothy, to see whether we can convince ourselves. But the issue is that he mentioned that 2025 they decreased system losses from 27% or 26.9% to 24%. Kudos to them if that is the case, because I'm yet to see that particular data. But 24% is nothing new. The ECG used to do 24% until it accelerated to 30% and now 27%. So it is not new. The benchmark established by PURC is 21%. In Africa, for example, the Ministry of Energy submitted what we call the Energy Compact, which is now to 2030 to the Mission 300. And among the countries, especially the English countries that submitted to the mission, Ghana has the highest system loss of 27% as of 2024. Even if we reduce it to 24% in 2025, we still have the highest among those countries. If you go Zambia, Senegal, Tanzania, Kenya, mostly they are doing around 17% and 11%, Zimbabwe 11% or so. So these countries are doing well, and they are doing so because there's some level of private sector participation in their regulatory framework or in their utility framework. Getting it here means that the private sector also helps us collect any revenue we want. Now, in terms of controls, you see, the best control for us, for these utilities, is the PURC. They are the regulator. But because of political interference and government interference, in 2024, the PURC sanctioned ECG and some top-level management. We couldn't supervise or implement that sanction because of government interference. So whenever there's a government interference, any control you put in place through a regulation, through a convention, through a principle, through a strategy, you will not be able to implement it because the government appoints the MD of ECG. And that's same to the MD of PURC. And the ECG, because they are appointed differently, sometimes not even under the control of the Ministry of Energy and Green Transition or under that particular minister, they become the boss of themselves because they don't report to anybody other than the president.
Right.
And that's why I think that private sector participation will help us. But maybe if I meet Senior Timo, he may have some data or new evidence to maybe convince me to support him. But as of now, I think that private sector participation will help us.
Although the PURC will have to regulate it, but regardless, even if it's a private sector participation, it is still possible that they won't be able to do it and they will not be doing what is expected of them. So we understand the...
Oh, no, the private sector, the PURC will do it, and they will do it right, especially I've been calling for some amendment of that particular act. I think 738, we need to amend it and look at some of these issues and address them.
Benjamin, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. All right.
That it has commenced processes for the appointment of a transaction advisor to oversee the privatization of the electricity company. Morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us and a happy new year. It's the first time we're speaking in 2025.
For the opportunity.
What has been the latest in government's quest to get public sector participation for the ECG or privatization in general?
So let me say good morning to your cherished listeners as well. And so, as you already know, His Excellency's Cabinet approved PSP in April 2025. Since then, there's been stakeholder engagement between the government led by the Minister of Energy and Green Transition, Honorable Chinapo, and POO, as well as TUC workers of ECG, and then the utility workers in general. The government put together a technical committee to steer the process. The technical committee has provided the minister with some recommendations. Beyond that, they've also provided the minister with a guide for the framework that the transaction advisor is going to use. And so, based on that, there's what I'll describe as some recommendations that the minister will have to take in decisions together with the government of Ghana. In June 2025, in one of such engagements, the workers asked for a 6-month moratorium to try and improve the services of ECG. The 6 months is up. We are looking forward to further engagement. But the process is ongoing. The appointment of the transaction advisor is ongoing. And once that is done, the transaction advisor will guide government on how to proceed.
I see. But the position of the TUC and the Public Utilities Workers Union, it does not change. They're still kicking against it. And their reasons are that ECG, although still has a lot more to do, NEDCO still has a lot more to do. So far, it's doing well. So why don't you keep giving them the enabling environment so that they can keep improving on what they're doing, increasing revenue, for instance? And they are also saying, and they are afraid of job losses, redundancy, letting go of their staff that will happen if eventually a private sector intervention is introduced?
The goal of private sector is not to cause job losses, is to complement the work that ECG has been doing. We all recognize the difficulties that ECG and NETCO face. We know the issues with billing, we know the issues with collections, we know the issues with service in general. And so the private sector is not supposed to dislodge ECG. And the government has given the workers the assurances that they need, that there won't be any job losses, and that process will be done to ensure that every worker is protected. Their interest is paramount to government, and that is very key. And so that assurance has been given to them already. On holding on with the process, even though they ask for more time, to perform. In my considered opinion, I don't believe that asking for more time to improve means that the entire process must come to a halt. That can be done hand to hand once you're going through the process. Because it takes some time to be able to even go through the process of getting your draft framework, going through the process of getting the transaction advisor. And so that is what has been ongoing. The most important point for us as a government is that there's always been engagement. At all times, the minister's door has always been open. The minister has been very open with them, and they will tell you themselves that the minister has showed leadership throughout this process. And so we'll continue to engage them. We've requested that we have a meeting with them. The minister will meet them. And whatever concerns they have, I'm sure that the discussions that have always been in good faith continue to ensure that whatever issues are outstanding are resolved. And like we've reached out to them to let them know, we don't have to engage in the media. That has not been the style. We've always engaged in good faith. Anytime they've called on the ministry, the minister has responded. And so let's go back to the conference room that we meet every time, have discussions, and I'm sure that whatever is there, we'll have a amicable solution to it.
Although the assurances will be given, but the reality too, Richmond, is that after a while, when the privatization concerns are resolved and the new ECG is new management and all of that, after a while, 3 years, there'll be a lot of layoffs. We've seen that in the banking sector. We've seen that in some other sectors of the economy. There's no guarantee.
That's at this point is speculative. And for me, it's not even about just the public sector. Everyone does what we call staff rationalization from time to time. Everybody has his or her vision or mission as a business. As a business, you look at your business as a going concern, and then you take decisions. You look at your staff. If you need more staff, you hire. If you need less staff, you reduce staff. If you have to bring in technology, you do that. And so these are decisions that every business goes through. It's not just about the fact that because you're going to have private sector participation automatically means that there will be job losses. No. There are businesses that because you've had private sector participation, they've ended up hiring more. If you look at some of these, for example, if you take Ghana Telecom, when Ghana Telecom came in, at the end of the day, Vodafone expanded more than what Ghana Telecom was. And so they ended up having more staff than what they meant. And so it's not automatic that immediately you take over that is going to happen. We saw at GCB. GCB used to be state-led. They went through the process of becoming a publicly listed company. The business has expanded. They have more shares, more branches. You see Goyle PLC, they expanded. They have over 400 filling stations. They even, at the point, he started a subsidiary for upstream. And so that is not always the case that once you bring in the private sector, you bring in interest, it means automatically there should be job losses. There are several instances to show that where the businesses have expanded as a result of investments or the introduction of the private sector. And so let's not look at it from just the negative angle. Let's look at it from a positive angle. The most important thing is that it's not a sale of ECG. If it is a sale of ECG, that is when you're going to have the private sector make the sole decision. This is not going to be a sale. This is bringing in private sector participation to assist ECG to deal with the challenges that for decades they haven't been able to deal with. And I'm not sure that the government will sit down for people to lose their jobs under the PSP.
And finally, from me, Roxing, what next should we expect in terms of the conversations on the privatization or the private sector participation? What more should we look out for in the coming months, maybe?
In the coming months, the government will be guided by the report of the transactional advisor. And so what I will say is that let's wait for what the transactional advisor will be. Yesterday, there were allegations that they've seen a report that says that the country should be divided. ECG should be merged with NETCO. The country should be divided into 4 areas, 4 zones. All those are not accurate. Let's wait for the transactional advisor's report. Once government gets the report, government will be guided on the way forward. Whether you need 5 concessionaires, you need 10, you need 7, the report will guide government. But like I said, the most important point for us as a government here is that ECG must be healthy. If you have a solid ECG, you have a very viable energy sector. And we've seen it with this year alone, with last year alone. Previous year, you had paying 6 million from cash waterfall. Collections go up, and last year, we're doing about 18 billion. So it should tell you that once ECG and NETCO is healthy, those 2 companies are healthy, we will be able to navigate most of the challenges that we've had in the energy sector, and that should be our concern as citizens of Ghana.
Richmond, I'd like to thank you so much for your time with us on the program this morning.
Thank you, Chief, for the opportunity.
Richmond Roxing is the spokesperson of the Ministry of Energy.
Awesome.
Some big challenges. But that one is non-negotiable. That one is undebatable. From unpaid bills to high debts. Whether it's through better public management or bringing in private partners, the real question, it is very simple. How do we keep the lights on? That we are doing well so far at that. How do we make electricity affordable? And then also, most importantly, how do we make sure the money is collected? Plenty people. You are listening to me, you know that you have done some connection somewhere. It's your life. And if we collect the money, how do we make sure that the money is used well? That is the debate. That is all that matters. There's also the bit about, layoffs. But the spokesperson is explaining to us that when new management comes, new business, they'll decide whether to increase staff or everybody has a point. Let me know what you think. Share with us your thoughts. But this is something that we'll continue to monitor very closely. TUC, PU, PU, their position is simple. Don't do it. Stop it. The Energy Ministry says that, yes, you're making some improvements, but it does not mean we should stop what we are doing. So the 2 of them are working together. But like I said, what matters is keeping the lights on, making electricity more affordable, and making sure the money is collected and used well. And then making sure that we don't lose staff. We don't lay off workers. This is still Sunrise on 3FM 92.7. My name is Noble Crosby-Annan. Give us a minute. We're back with more conversations.
3FM.